Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The Phi, that is, yeah.
I didn't think I missed them yet.
This can be explained based on the following well-known idea. The Jews believe in divinity with simple faith, needing no evidence at all. Jews don't need evidence. You don't need to convince them by providing evidence that God exists. They don't need it. They believe with complete faith, with simple faith, for two reasons. Firstly, because their mazel sees it. You remember last week we discussed this. Mazel is the part of the soul that is on high, so that sees divinity with super-rational vision. And this causes the part of the soul that is vested within the body to believe in divinity. The soul has different parts, components. Part of the soul is enclosed, of course, in our body. And then there's a part of the soul that is called mazel, that stays above. And there's a connection between that part of the soul and the part of the soul that is enclosed in the body. The soul that's up there sees God. And when it sees God, it doesn't need any, once you see something, that's it. You don't need to be explained any evidence or anything. You see it. I don't need to explain to you and give you evidence that this table was here now. You see it, and that's it. It's definite. So in that part of the soul, experience and sees God in heaven, it shares that vision with the soul that is down here, and the soul therefore has faith down here as well. That's one reason. Another explanation given is that this faith stems from the essence of the soul, even a higher source, which transcends the level of their mazel sees it. It's even higher than that. For the bond of the soul's essence with divinity is an innate bond that does not depend on any cause, not even the super-rational vision. When you say, I see something, at the end of the day, that which you see is not you. It's not you. It's two separate things. So there's no question that even then, when you see something, you're convinced that it exists. So you're going to have faith that it exists, no doubt about that. But then there's an even higher level. It's not that I see it. I am it. God and the Jewish people and the Jewish soul is one essence, is the same thing. They're bonded together, they're connected. That is beyond seeing. It's like you say, how do you know I have a kidney? How do you know I have a brain? You see your brain. It's beyond seeing. It's way beyond seeing. What? It's beyond seeing. You experience it. You are it. That is you. And it can be said, he continues, that one of the distinctions between these two explanations or two levels is that the faith of the body-bound part of the soul that stems from the vision of the heaven-bound part of the soul is an abstract faith. For the heaven-bound part of the soul transcends manifestation. Its effect on the soul clothed in the body is therefore abstract as well. What he's saying is like this. What is the reason that part of the soul is not enclosed in your body? We just said before there are two parts of the soul, right? There are really five, but let's divide it into two for the purpose of this discussion. There's the part of the soul that encloses itself and invested in the body, and then there's the part of the soul that remains above. Why does it remain above?
It's too lofty to be here.
It's too abstract for it to. It's too lofty. It's too high. It's too spiritual for it to be enclosed in the body, which is so corporeal and physical. So if that is beyond your body, if that part of the soul is beyond your body, it's too much for it to enclose itself in the body in a very personal way. So all of the effects of that part of the body, anything that stems from that part of the soul, is also a bit removed from the body. So the faith, therefore, that stems from that vision is also a bit abstract. It too is beyond your, a little bit removed. Let's read it inside again. It can be said that one of the distinctions between these two explanations or two levels is that the faith of the body-bound part of the soul that stems from the vision of the heaven-bound part of the soul is an abstract faith. Why is that abstract? For the heaven-bound part of the soul transcends manifestation. It's beyond it being able to manifest itself in your body. Its effect on the soul, clothed in the body, is therefore abstract as well. So yes, you believe in God, but it remains a bit aloof. It may not affect you to the degree that it should. That's why you can have a person, as I always give the example, the rabbis give this example, of a person burglarizing, go home and asking God for success, that no one should catch him. He believes in God. Not only believes in God, he believes in divine providence, that God right now is in control if someone's going to catch him or not. It's not just a basic faith. It's a real faith, but it remains abstract. He at the same moment that he believes, he can do the very opposite of what he believes in. Internalization of faith by the body-bound part of the soul requires the revelation of the innate bond of the soul's essence with divinity. He's saying that the faith that comes from the essence, from the essence of the soul, is a much deeper faith than the faith that stems from the mazel part of the soul. Because the essence of the soul is the essence of every part of your soul, of the part of the soul that's enclosed in your body as well. So therefore the effects of that essence is going to be enclosed, is also going to be very, very personal and manifest itself in your soul, in your body, in a personal and very, very real way and concrete. That's what he says, internalization of faith by the body-bound part of the soul requires the revelation. If you want to internalize that faith, that requires the revelation of the innate bond of the soul's essence with divinity. You need to tap into that part of your faith, to that part of your soul. Why? So he says, for the soul's essence is the essence of the body-bound part of the soul as well. It's the essence of the whole soul. The parts that remain above and the parts that come down into your body. Therefore, the body-bound part of the soul's faith, when inspired by the essence of the soul, is felt consciously. When your essence is revealed, you're not going to burglarize no home. When a person is touched with the essence of his neshama, he's not stealing, he's not doing any of that. Not only that, he's ready to go into fire for God and die for Hashem. Based on the above, this is clear? Based on the above, we can...
That's not equal. I mean, just because you're not going to burglarize a home doesn't mean you're going to die. It's still different levels.
I'm saying it's so powerful that a person's even ready for self-sacrifice.
Not always.
When the essence is revealed, yeah.
Always?
What does always mean? When you need it, when it's needed. Of course not. I mean, if you're not challenged, of course you're not going to... In other words, when you're challenged, given the choice, death or faith, and your essence is revealed, then you're going to die for the Hashem. If your essence is revealed. Usually your essence becomes revealed when those things happen. But not always, you're right. It doesn't always mean that your essence will be revealed. But if it is, you're going to always do the right thing. A Yid is not capable of doing something against Hashem. If he's consciously in touch with Hashem. When your essence is revealed in you, you're incapable of going against Hashem. It's impossible. That's the power of the essence. When your mazel is revealed, you are capable of doing something against Hashem. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Your faith that stems from your mazel, you see it. So you're convinced. There's no question about it. No one can shake that faith, right? You can't shake your determination that this is real. You can't bring any doubt to a person about something that he saw. No matter what you tell him,
You saw it.
he saw it. You can't tell me I didn't see it. It doesn't exist. If a scientist comes in here now and gives you a 3-hour dissertation, explanation, that's impossible that the conditions, the weather conditions and the oxygen conditions of this room, it's impossible that this piece of electronics was here today. It's not possible. He does the tests, he shows you in the lab. He says, it's not possible that this video camera was here. So and he gives you 3 hours and brings Einstein as proof, and he brings the biggest professors of the world into this room to explain this to you. And it makes sense what he's saying. And you can't tell him, you can't prove him wrong. But you, at the end of the day, at the end of the 3 hours, you're going to say to him, sei mir gesund, have a nice day. This camera was here. I saw it. It was here. You can never put doubt in your mind that this camera was here. But does that mean that you're going to be dedicated to this camera? Just because you know that it was here? No. Just because you see something doesn't motivate dedication. So no one expects you to be dedicated to that camera. But now let's talk about God. So your mazel sees Hashem. Does that mean I have to die for it? Yes, I'm convinced that He's there, but I'm also here. But I'm also convinced that I'm in existence. And when my existence is in contradiction to Hashem's existence, maybe mine comes first. This faith that stems from your mazel seeing it, from that determination, is powerful, no question about it. But it's not more powerful than you yourself. So if I'm put to the test, someone tells you either die for it or give up your faith. He'll give up his faith. But you saw Hashem. You're right. I saw him, I'm not. So I saw it. I'm sure that He exists, but I'm not ready to die for it. Why should I be ready to die for something I saw? It's not me. At the end of the day, I am more important. But the faith that stems from the essence of the neshama, what's the essence? What's the point of that faith? It's not. I'm not. I don't have. It's not a faith in God because I'm convinced that He exists because I saw Him. I'm convinced of this because He is me. I and Him are one essence. Against yourself, you can't go. You can't go against yourself. The essence of the neshama is connected to Hashem. You can't go against that. That's your very self. When you realize that you and Hashem are one, you can't go against that. It's like a parent and a child. If you saw a kid that's drowning, God forbid, you saw someone else's kid that's drowning, and the only way you can save him is by yourself dying. You jump into the water, you're going to die, but he's going to live. Will everyone do that? Will everyone jump in and save someone else's kid and die? You have heroic people that would, and some people won't. So you tell them, why didn't you jump in? You didn't see a kid dying? I did see a kid dying, but I'm not going to die myself to save another person. My life comes first. And that's the law also, by the way, in the Torah. Your life comes first. But if you see your own child dying in the water, that's not a question. You're right, you jump in and you die for him. It's because it's you. Because you're deeply connected. It's your essence. So there's no questions. So that's the difference between the mazel seeing it and the essence of the neshama experiencing it. The mazel sees it's to be someone else. I'm convinced that someone else exists. In this case, God. The essence of the neshama experience is not someone else, it's me. And note that against yourself you can't function. You can't go against yourself. You can't deny yourself. Understand that?
It's an extreme example, but yes.
What's an extreme example?
The child drowning is an extreme.
It's a good analogy.
That is the analogy.
Yeah.
That's exactly the analogy.
analogy.
That's the meaning of the Jewish people are the children of God. You are children to your God, your Lord. Moshe says it in Parashat Devarim. And God calls us His children, His firstborn child in Parashat Shmos, in the beginning of Exodus. These are not stam words. They mean something. exact metaphor. But for that to really manifest itself in your consciousness, someone needs to put you in touch with the essence of your soul. You have that essence must be revealed. If you're never going to know, it's like I always give the example of someone sitting on a park bench. He was being separated from his child from birth. They snatched away his kid at birth. They kidnapped him. Never saw him again. And then by divine providence, 30 years later, this adult 30-year-old is sitting on a park bench, and another person, 60 years old, walks by, sits down on the bench right near him. It turns out that they're father and son. But if they don't know, you're not going to see any emotions. You're not going to see anything. But if someone comes over and tells the father, you see this 30-year-old? That's your long-lost son. You watch what happens. So someone's got to tell him that this is his son. He doesn't know it on his own. He never saw him since birth. How's he supposed to know? So you're going to say, wait, he's not hugging him, he's not kissing him. What's going on? Is our father? What kind of a father are you? And what kind of a son is this? This is crazy. This is a healthy father. He just doesn't know that this is his son. So when you see a Yid going against Hashem, he's not eating kosher, he's not putting on film, he's not keeping Shabbos, he's not doing what he has to do. So what kind of a Jew are you? What kind of a son are you? Did someone tell him that that Hashem is his father? Does he know that he has a neshama? Did you ever tell him that this is his father? He may not know. So there has to be that someone that reveals in every year the essence of his neshama. Who is that someone? The Maimer said that's the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation, the Moses of every generation. He's the one that reveals the soul of every Yid. Will you watch what happens when a Yid's essence is revealed? He walks through walls for Hashem. He jumps into fire for God. Or he's motivated to do mitzvahs for Hashem. We don't always die for Hashem. You can live for Hashem. But someone has to reveal it. And that's the job of Moshe Rabbeinu. His job was to reveal the essence of every Yid's neshama. Moshe Rabbeinu did it in the desert. But then there was no need for self-sacrifice, because no one was challenging them. So they were living peacefully, they were doing well. So in what way did the essence express itself? In their deep knowledge of Hashem. He made God conscious in their mind in the highest way. And they delved into the knowledge of God. He gave them the highest level of understanding of Hashem. He revealed their essence that way. Later he's going to say that Mordechai did the same thing during Purim. But then it was a different scenario. Then they were not in a very peaceful place and situation. Then they were threatened with annihilation by Haman. So he revealed their essence. What did his revealing of their essence accomplish? That they were ready for self-sacrifice. They actually were ready to give up their life for Hashem. The sages tell us that no one even entertained leaving the faith to save themselves. And the Rebbe is going to say that essence that motivates Mesiras Nefesh is an even deeper essence than that which motivates, than the essence that Moshe revealed. We'll see it. Let's not run ahead of ourselves. Internalization of faith by the body-bound part of the soul requires a revelation of the innate bond of the soul's essence with divinity. For the soul's essence is the essence of the body-bound part of the soul. Therefore, the body-bound part of the soul's faith, when inspired by the essence of the soul, is felt consciously. You want to read 73? Let's read 73. Clearly, the second level of faith stems from a deeper source within the soul. Right? The core of the soul that is essentially bound with divinity and does not need to see divinity. But there's also a difference between these two levels with regard to the faith that it ultimately sensed consciously within the body. One will be abstract, stemming from the external influence, while the other will be real, sensed within the essence fiber of the one's being. Okay. Let's move on. Based on the above, we can explain the connection between the concepts mentioned in the discourse. We're talking about the previous Rebbe's discourse now, right? Now we can explain the juxtapositions over here. Why the previous Rebbe explains certain things following one another. Where the concept of crushed for the luminary follows the explanation of the idea of the shepherd of faith. The previous Rebbe explained in his mind that what does crushed for the luminary mean? That when a person is crushed, it's like when the simple meaning of the verse is that you take the olives, you crush them, so it can produce oil, so you can light the menorah in the temple. So, but the words in the pasuk are crushed for the luminary. And the question was, why the luminary, not illumination? You're crushing it for it to give light. It was luminary. It's explained that on the spiritual level, that crushed, when a Yid is crushed in exile, during exile, it brings out his luminary, the essence of his soul, the source of the light. And the previous Rebbe explains that idea right next to the idea, right following the idea, in which he explains what the job of the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation is. That Moshe Rabbeinu shepherds the Jewish people with faith. He feeds them their faith. So now he's going to connect the two. Based on the above, we can explain the connection between the concepts mentioned in the discourse, where the concept of crushed for the luminary follows the explanation of the idea of shepherd of faith. Moses feeds and sustains the faith. Usually shepherd of faith means he's a faithful shepherd. He's so dedicated. The Rebbe explains it, the Zohar says more than that. It's a shepherd of faith. Raya Mehemne means he's not only the faithful shepherd, but he's the shepherd of faith. He feeds the Jewish people, his flock, with faith. That means he takes the faith from an abstract place and makes it personally, feeds it to them like when you eat food. What happens when you eat food? It goes into your system internally, becomes part of your existence. That's what happens with food, right? It turns into your flesh and blood. Moshe turns the abstract faith and makes it real. It should manifest itself in your internal essence of your existence. How does he do that? By revealing the essence of your soul. That was what Moshe did. Let's see. Moshe feeds and sustains the faith, causing it to be felt consciously by revealing the soul's essence, which transcends the level of their mazel sees, which is the luminary, it's the essence, the source of everything, which is beyond light. However, the phrase crushed for the luminary, which the discourse interprets to mean that one reaches the luminary through crushing of exile, indicates that the primary revelation of the soul's essence, the luminary, occurs through the experience of self-sacrifice, which occurs primarily during exile, as will be explained. That means we're talking about two different scenarios of revealing the essence. One done by Moshe in the desert, and one done by Mordechai in the time of Purim. Right? They both reveal the essence, but there's a difference. The essence that Moshe revealed is essence, but it's not the deepest essence. The deepest essence is revealed in a time of when there's been self-sacrifice. And that was accomplished by Mordechai. Let's read this last paragraph again. However, the phrase crushed for the luminary, which the discourse interprets to mean that one reaches the luminary through the crushing of exile. And don't forget, Moshe and the Jews were not in exile in the desert experience. So that indicates that the primary revelation of the soul's essence, the luminary, occurs through the experience of self-sacrifice, which occurs primarily during exile, as will be explained. More even than the knowledge that Moshe revealed to the Jewish people in the desert. And that's what he's going to explain over here. You understand what's happening here? Chapter 6. The concept is as follows. The fact that the Jew's faith is such that he is willing to sacrifice his life for it stems primarily from the faith inspired by the soul's essence. Self-sacrifice is not happening if your essence is not revealed. For the faith inspired by the vision, by his vision, his mazel sees it, as we explained before, despite the great intensity. despite its great intensity, the faith that stems from your mazel sees it is intense. It's real. It's very real. It is well known that the conviction inspired by sight is extremely powerful. But it will not invariably cause him to sacrifice his life for it. As I explained before, for such faith is based on a cause. Why do you have the faith? Because I saw it. The fact that he sees. And it is not connected to the essence of his being. It's not me. Like I said before, I see something, I'm convinced that it exists, but at the end of the day, if it's either that, what I see, or me, I'm coming first. You're right, I am convinced that this exists. I'm convinced that God exists. I saw him. My mazel saw it. But I'm more convinced that I exist. Or I'm not more convinced, but I'm more important at least. The fact that the Jew's faith is such that he is willing to sacrifice his life for it because his belief in divinity is his essence. Read that again. The fact that the Jew's faith is such that he is willing to sacrifice his life for it, he's ready to give up his life for that. This is because his belief in divinity is his essence. It's my essence, not something else that I see. It's my very essence. And against my very essence, I can't deny, I can't go against. It is therefore entirely impossible for him to deny God's existence, God forbid. This is it's beautiful. We can now explain this, understood? We can now explain the discourse's statement that the idea of Moshe being a shepherd of faith, that he feeds and sustains Israel's faith, applies to the shepherds of Israel in every generation, the offshoots of Moses in every generation, that they strengthen Israel's faith to stand steadfast with self-sacrifice in the performance of Torah and mitzvahs. It would seem that Moshe's feeding this and sustaining the faith, as explained in many sources, and in this very discourse of the previous Rebbe, consists of imparting knowledge. What did Moshe do? What does it mean he sustained the Jewish people, he fed them with faith? What did he do? It's very simple. He imparted knowledge of God to them, to Israel. He taught them about Hashem. He took that faith, that abstract concept that they believe in, and made it theirs personal. He brought it into their minds and hearts. Made it real for them. So it doesn't remain abstract. How did he do that? By revealing their essence. But it's not quite the essence. Let's read this again. It would seem that Moshe is feeding and sustaining the faith. Sustaining of faith, as explained in many sources and in this very discourse, consists of imparting knowledge, das, of God to Israel, which causes their faith to be felt consciously. It's no longer abstract. By contrast, the strengthening of the faith caused by the shepherds of Israel in every generation, especially the ones that are leading the Jews during exile, as explained in this discourse, consists of causing their faith to be one of self-sacrifice. Very two different experiences. This seems to be inconsistent. You're telling me that they all do the same job. Moshe, the shepherds of Israel in every generation, they're not doing the same job. Moshe fed the Jewish people with knowledge, and they're feeding people with self-sacrifice. They're getting people to be ready to die for Hashem. That Moshe didn't do. So what does it mean they're doing the same thing? You follow?
They didn't do it because they didn't need it.
Right.
Not in the
Good. So it's not the same experience. But based on the above idea that self-sacrifice is inspired by the soul's essence, we can say that the primary function of the shepherd of faith is to feed and sustain the faith itself, so that the faith is inspired not only by revelation, in other words, the fact that the soul on high sees divinity, but by the soul's essence. In other words, you're right. it manifests itself in every generation differently. In Moshe's times, it manifested itself in feeding the Jewish people with great knowledge of Hashem. In Mordechai's time, it manifests itself in getting people to be ready to die for Hashem. What's the common denominator?
Hashem.
No, 1 second. But as far as Moshe's accomplishment, the Moses of each respective generation's accomplishment, that they're feeding the faith itself. What are they doing? They're revealing where does the faith of a Yid come from? We just said from the essence. They are feeding that essence to the Jewish people. In Moshe's generation, manifests itself in making it personal, in bringing it to the conscious level of a Yid. So it becomes real in his life on a daily level, on the daily, daily conduct and so on and so forth. By Mordechai, it manifests itself in the need of that time, which is self-sacrifice. But they're both doing the same thing. They're revealing the essence of their neshama. They're revealing, they're feeding the faith itself. Basically, they're revealing in every Yid his essence. That's what he's saying here. Based on the above idea that self-sacrifice is inspired by the soul's essence, we can say that the primary function of the shepherd of faith is to feed and sustain the faith itself. The faith itself should be elevated to a new level. Not that the faith should inspire you, should inspire other things. He's feeding the faith itself. The shepherd of faith. Not the faithful shepherd, the shepherd of faith. He's feeding the faith itself. What does it feed the faith itself? It's to feed and sustain the faith itself so that the faith is inspired not only by revelation, not that you don't believe only because you saw God, but your faith is inspired by the fact that your essence is experiencing. In other words, he reveals the essence. That Moshe caused the faith to be internalized in das and understanding is a result of his feeding and sustaining the faith itself, drawing forth and revealing the faith that stems from the soul's essence. That's not the accomplishment that he fed Jewish people with knowledge. That was a result of what? Is the result of his feeding and sustaining the faith itself, which means drawing forth and revealing the faith that stems from the soul's essence. As explained above, chapter 5, internalization of faith, bringing it into das, occurs through the revelation of the innate bond of the soul's essence with divinity. So that's what he did. He revealed the essence of a neshama. Once you do that, then you can... So that then was brought down into the conscious levels of the human being with great knowledge, with great das, and so on and so forth, which is what he did, ultimately. He taught and he fed the Jewish people a tremendous amount of knowledge of God. But that was only a tetzah, that was only a result.
If he didn't do what he did, Mordechai wouldn't have done what
That's
he
also true, for sure. Now the faith of the generations that required actual self-sacrifice was strengthened by the shepherds of Israel, the offshoots of Moshe, so that it would be a faith that dictated self-sacrifice. Based on the above, we can say that in those leaders, the Moshes of the Jewish people, at times of exile and persecution, the idea of shepherd of faith in this aspect was manifest in a greater way than in Moshe himself. Because Moshe, at the end of the day, there was no self-sacrifice, there wasn't a need, so it never manifested itself in the highest level. The essence was never manifested at that level. In the times of Mordechai, it was. So in this aspect of how it manifests itself in our conscious life down here, by Mordechai was even deeper than by Moshe. Because how did it manifest in Moshe's time? They had tremendous knowledge of God. How did it manifest as a result of him revealing the essence? How did it manifest in Mordechai's time? Death, or the readiness for death, which is much deeper and greater than knowledge of Hashem. Your conscious mind has great knowledge of Hashem. For that.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
You say that the knowledge of Hashem is a result
of the revealing of the essence. And I thought that was the other way around. By knowing Hashem, you internalize and understand and tap to that essence. So what comes first? Like the example you gave of the person that is sitting next to the son. If he didn't know it was his son, he wouldn't reveal that.
So you have to reveal the essence.
But how you...
And then you
by
see a
knowledge?
passion. No, it's not by knowledge. Well, you have to tell him that he has an essence. You have to reveal that this is an essential connection over here.
How?
You don't have to tell this person how great this son is. What a wonderful son you have. That's not what you need to tell him. When he's sitting on the park bench oblivious to the fact that he's sitting near his son 30 years later, you don't want to tell him, well, did you know that your son just graduated from college, he got a PhD? And you should love him therefore? That's not what you have to tell him. You have to tell him, hello, this is your son. That's the first thing you have to tell him. That there's a connection between you, an essential connection. Once that happens, then you start talking. Well, by the way, this son of yours is tremendous. But it's more than that. The das is not just to tell people how great God is, to get to know Him. Yes, but that's a result of the revealing the essence. What comes first, what comes second? It's in the experience of das, I don't know. What does it mean He revealed their essence? What does it mean Moshe revealed the essence of of their neshama?
He told them that they had a neshama.
They knew they had a neshama. That part they knew.
It.
But they were talking about the essence.
He uncovered it.
How? Through das. That's what she's saying.
This
through
is
teaching
what we're doing
them.
right now.
Oh. So she's saying what comes first, what comes second. It's a good question. The point is that what was the ultimate experience of the revelation of their essence in the desert? Knowledge of Hashem. They learned Torah all day. That's how He did it. But the manifestation of that essence in Mordechai's time was a much deeper and greater manifestation than the time of Moshe. Because at the end of the day, in this aspect, the Moses of the generations of persecution was deeper. Their accomplishment was much more. The essence that they revealed was even deeper than the essence that Moshe revealed, in a sense. Or at least the manifestation was greater. Readiness for death is much deeper than your conscious knowledge of Hashem. That brings out, when a person is ready to die for his child, or for Hashem, you know that this person is in a bond, an essential bond with Hashem. In the desert, it was manifested itself in a different way. You follow what I'm saying?
But he still had to get them motivated enough to leave Mitzrayim.
Talking about more in the time of the desert. That's where he did this. Talking about after Matan Torah. Look, in the last paragraph he says, for the extraction and revelation of the faith of the soul's essence through Moshe and his offshoots in every generation becomes manifest primarily through self-sacrifice, through actual self-sacrifice. Read note 85. Both Moses and the subsequent Jewish leaders revealed within their people the faith that stems from the soul's essence. Yet, the effect of the subsequent Jewish leaders is arousing the people to self-sacrifice for Torah and mitzvahs is much more apparent than Moses' effect in enabling his people to internalize their faith. When tens of thousands of children defy Achashverosh's decree and publicly study Torah, declaring their unwavering devotion to God and His Torah to the point of self-sacrifice, this is the greatest testament to Mordechai's leadership and the function of a shepherd of faith. And the same is true of every Jewish leader who has inspired his generation to self-sacrifice. Look at 83 first. Primary function of the shepherd of faith is to elicit within the people the deepest form of faith, the faith that stems from the soul's essence. That's the primary function. Now, how it manifests itself, now, it depends when it is. This is true both of Moshe and the subsequent leaders. The only difference is that Moshe's dictation, the Moshe's elicitation of essential faith affects that the faith be felt consciously within the people, through das. while the subsequent leader's elicitation of essential faith results in the faith being the catalyst for self-sacrifice, as will be explained. So both of them have the same function, to bring out the faith as it is based on the essence. But depending on the circumstances, how that's going to manifest itself. And the first time that the Jewish people needed to Mesiras Nefesh was in the time of Purim. They never had an experience like that before, because there was never a challenge like that before. So Mordechai is the first one that really brought out that essence to that degree. Verstehst?